He was born in 1903 and he died in 1965 when he was 62 years old. And he was born in New Orleans to a well-to-do family. And his mom was really big in his life. She was an artist, she was a musician, and she had the three boys and he was the middle child. And she really raised them to be artists. She made that like that was really important to her, and they all became artists. He went to, well, they sent him to boarding school when he was really, I don't know how young he was, in New York, and he hated it. I think at least two of the brothers went to boarding school. The other one was okay, but he obviously had a really hard, who knows how much it traumatized him, right? And then the First World War started and he was 14, and then he came back to New Orleans and he ended up going to art school, and he went to Parsons School of Design before it was Parsons, and then Pennsylvania Academy of Art. So he had this really good art education, and he got the scholarship to go to Paris. So when he was there, he visited the caves, the Paleolithic caves, and that made a huge impression on him. And also, he was very into mysticism, I guess, and he was really well read, and he visited Gurdjieff's Institute for the Harmonious Development of Man in Fontainebleau, and so they don't really know if he met him or, what his relationship with that was, but it just points to the fact that he had all of these mystical yearnings, and later on he went to China and he wanted to see the murals in Tibet. He had this dream of seeing the murals in Tibet. So, I mean, who was thinking of that back then? I don't know. And then he came back, and I think his mother set up this studio, a ceramic studio for Peter, his brother, at Shearwater. And Walter went to work there, and they ended up collaborating on the ceramic work the rest of their life. And I'm going to show some of that. So Peter made the ceramics, and then Walter would decorate them. And then this was like, that started in 1922, and then eventually the Depression came. He wanted to get married to this woman, Sissy, who he fell in love with, who was also, she was an art historian. She was really into the arts. But in order to get married, he needed to get more money. So they hatched the scheme of making these figurines in the studio. And that's when the figurine business started. And that kind of took him through the early Depression. He got married. And then his dad died in 1937. he was close to his father, and he sank into a depression after his dad died. And he'd also taken a trip with Sissy, a river trip, and he caught malaria there on that, and he almost died. He caught some other disease also, so he was kind of recuperating from that. And then he was also really unhappy making these figurines, because it was like a factory of these things. And he designed them, but he couldn't stand doing these repetitive things all the time, and he called them his widgets, and he came to detest making them. So somewhere in there, he had a psychotic break, and he spent 18 months at Johns Hopkins Hospital. And then they released him because he was sick of it there, and they released him. But he came back, and he was just not the same. He was unhappy. He would wander off, and he didn't bathe. He was depressed. So he went back to another institution, Mississippi State, and for another year. And then he escaped by, he was in several institutions. One of them, he tied his bed sheets together and put them out the window and climbed down. That's how he escaped. And then he was reinstitutionalized in Baltimore, and he left that one, and he walked 1,000 miles back home. He walked 1,000 miles back home, and and through all this, he had some kind of spiritual, shift. And one of the things I wrote, he said he could never hunt. He could never hunt again. He started to have this horrible remorse about killing a turtle. He killed a turtle, and he couldn't get it out of his mind. So he came back. When he finally came back, and he started to, I guess he became more functional, and they moved to Oldfields, which was, down there somewhere in the New Orleans area, I guess.
No, it's by Biloxi.
Oh, by Biloxi.
Yeah,
Thank you,
yeah,
Sonny.
it's like still in the same area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that was the home of his wife's parents. And this became a really productive period of his life. And he started making art like a mad person there. And they had more children. So they had, I believe they had 4 children in total. He was just making art all the time. After dinner, he would read, and he, by candlelight, and he would illustrate great books. One of his favorites was Don Quixote. And he would do these pen and ink illustrations of them.
Wow.
But then in 1947, he left Oldfield and returned to the cottage at Shearwater. So Shearwater was where the pottery business was. And he needed to get away. He needed to be more like a hermit. And that's how his life ended up going. And then he started to go to Horn Island off the coast in 1949. That was his refuge. He would row his boat out there and stay there for weeks. and just immerse himself in painting. How he did that, I mean, it's crazy. And also in 51, well, in 49, he started to get known a little bit, and the Brooklyn Museum invited him to show his giant wood block prints, the biggest prints ever. And instead, he went to China. He got a passport, he went to LA, he got on a steamer, he went to China. He wanted to go, he walked through China, he wanted to go to Tibet to see the murals, and he got his passport and his money stolen, and he had to come back.
Wow.
So he gets back, and in 51, he was commissioned, well, kind of commissioned by the Ocean Springs Community Center to do murals. But they came to an agreement that he would do these murals for $1. And it took him a year to do the murals. That's kind of his opus or something, you know. We're going to look at a lot of that. And then he continued to go on crazy trips. And he went to Costa Rica. He would walk hundreds of miles, ride his bike, and you know, a lot had to do with Horn Island. And then at the end of his life, well, it was after he died that they found his workroom that he had locked, this room in the cottage, and they opened up the door, and there were these murals and a ton of artwork, just a ton of artwork in there. And I don't know, Sani, do you have anything to add? I know that you've read some of the books. And
Well, I stumbled on him. Well, a friend of mine who lost her home in Bay St. Louis and lived here, moved to Ocean Springs, and told me about him. And when I ended up going there when she died, I went to Shearwater Pottery and the museum and the murals. The museum's attached to the community room with the murals. And I was just blown away because he had this ecstatic, mystical vision and vibratory language. I mean, he was obviously a mystic who had lost his identity and sense of self, in mentally ill as well as in beautiful ways, you know. And they had preserved the room in the cottage, but it was just like a room of praise and then pattern and vibration. And he was really into this guy who kind of believed all art had these 7 motifs that repeat, you know, of the spiral and the circle and the half circle, the wave and the line. And you can see how he used that it was how he experienced things as music and vibration, but how he used this language really served him. But you can tell it was also what he was experiencing. It wasn't like just him applying some method or theory. It was just serving him in his expression. But I was very touched by him because he clearly suffered a lot, you know, and was also ecstatically swept up when he went out to Horn Island. And it's just, these murals are like a symphony. It's just, they're unbelievable. Anyway, that's yeah.
well, thank you for sharing all that. Yeah, I didn't realize that you'd been down there. Maybe I forgot. So that was really valuable to hear.
The 7, whatever the 7 principles were, I'd be interested in that.
Yeah, I'll send it out in an email. It's just these shapes that are in design. And also, his mother raised them drawing every day in nature and had all these art books and books about patterns in nature. There's some photographer in Germany who did magnified patterns. We've probably all seen them somewhere along the line, but you know, they were steeped in the language of art,
Yeah.
steeped in it.
Also literature, I guess.
Yeah.
He loved to read all through his life. Yeah, one thing, there's a great movie, a documentary I just saw that I'll send out. And in it, one of his sons said at the end, he said, it was for his dad, it was a process. The art itself was not the object. It was the process of appreciating nature more fully.
Yeah.
That's what he was after.
Yeah.
And I just was amazed by that.
He was in communion with what he was painting completely.
Yeah. And he also had this philosophy that the artist is nature's means of expressing its order. So he felt like the artist's responsibility was to dialogue with nature and express through the artist. Nature was expressing through the artist. And so that was the service that the artist provided in a way. That's how he saw it.
Very
Okay,
psychedelic. I think he was really, in that sort of psychedelic world when he was in these states going out to the island.
Yeah.
What?
It's not a documentary on people.
Here he is in the Shearwater studio early on. And a block print. He did so many different things. He did printing, painting, wood carving. So here's some of the pottery that he painted with his brother. They did really beautiful stuff down there.
Where did you say he went to? Was it Tibet or he wanted to go?
No, he never made it to Tibet. He did go to China though. And Costa Rica and some other foreign country. So yeah, there's a very, primitive quality to some of them. He also liked Art Deco when he was young. So he was combining a lot of different things. And what people say is remarkable is this kind of fusion of his background as a trained artist, but also his interest in folk art, and more indigenous rooted, arts. Looks like a cat there. So this is one of the figurines. And there were a number of black figurines, but there are all kinds of crazy, fun designs.
Huh.
You can see how small it is.
Yeah, gee.
Okay, now we're come to the graphic works. Here, this is very indicative of his style of doing repetition, pattern.
That looks like William Morris to me.
Yeah, that's good. William Morris Also, there's a strange affinity with Charles Birchfield's work that we looked at,
Huh.
as you'll see more later maybe, but
And his
Uh,
mother was really into the arts and crafts movement and studied at Newcomb.
Uh-huh.
oh, what did you say, his brother?
His mother,
Oh, his mother.
yeah, she studied at Newcomb
Oh.
College and was,
Well, that's what I'm seeing, the arts and crafts movement there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, this is a really beautiful one. I'm just, yeah, look at that.
Gosh, that is beautiful. Pretty.
The arrangements of pine trees suggested music, vertical notes strung on the horizontal lines of road and horizon. So that really pertains to that piece. So yeah, there's still, there's still depth. There's three-dimensional space,
Mhm.
and yet it's got all this pattern going on.
Yeah, pattern.
Huh.
Some of these, I don't know when he did them. He did just a ton of work with animals, and he would just do these paintings on just, regular white, like typing paper.
That dates you a little bit, Michael. Typing,
Well, yeah, I know, but what would you call that stuff? It's just,
what do you call it?
yeah. typing
Printer paper, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, but then it wasn't, yeah.
Just made me laugh. We don't type.
Remember onion skin?
Yes.
I miss those lightweight papers.
That is so cool. Do you think that's finished, right?
Looks like it is, but I don't know.
Oh my
This looks finished. This looks like,
That's a linoleum.
it's the linoleum, okay. A linoleum block print.
Yeah, and he used leftover linoleum from floors, so they were huge, some of
Oh
them,
my God.
Wow.
30 inches wide or something, or
Oh my gosh.
he did some really big ones.
All movement is to invisible music, although few people hear it. It comes from the sun and the wind and the movement of water and a running rabbit and a crowing cock, and together it is part of a great symphony. The longer we listen and the quieter we are, the more we hear. And when we do hear, we are part of the music instead of an unwelcome interruption.
That's nice.
Yeah, so he just wanted to immerse himself in this. And he just went deeper and deeper,
Maybe he has synesthesia too.
Yeah,
I think so. Wow.
When you look at his work, you would not know that he had so many mental struggles. It seems very light.
yeah, and also in some of these statements that I'm going to show you, I mean, I originally, when I looked up his quotes and stuff, I couldn't believe he said this stuff because he sounded like some kind of spiritual teacher. There are all these platitudes.
Yeah.
And like, but he actually did say this stuff. It's pretty crazy.
Well, look at the butterfly in that one, you know, it's just very lighthearted.
Yeah, right in the center there.
Yeah.
Huh.
There's two of them, actually. There's another one. No, and maybe three. Let's one down.
Oh, yeah, there's one, there's
Another
one.
one down below too, underneath his neck.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're right. Cool.
He looks like he's smiling.
Does.
Yeah,
A happy animal. Covered with butterflies.
That is really wonderful. I love this.
That looks like something you would do, Barcott, this one.
That's funny because I'm really responding to it and I don't know
Looks
why.
like a Barcott.
I don't think I've ever done
I,
it.
yeah, I don't think it's a lot different than Barcott.
Yeah, it's like, I don't think I have done anything like it, but I really love it. Do you think that's watercolor and ink? I wonder what that is.
It's probably watercolor and ink.
Yeah, probably.
Really a nice combination.
I guess it's also sort of storytelling,
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
childlike.
Oh, this one, I didn't finish doing this one.
Oh.
What do you mean?
Wow.
He didn't finish it and I didn't finish placing it right. But look at all the repetition.
Yeah.
So here's his boat that's in the museum that Sonny went to.
He was there. Wow.
And
Boat out to, that's his boat to Horn Island.
yeah,
Oh.
yeah. And somebody gave him a outboard motor for the boat and he put it on there, but evidently he couldn't get it to work right or something, so he unhitched it and let it sink to the bottom of the ocean. He didn't give a effing care about it. He was like, one more thing I don't need.
Oh, boy.
And he did watercolors under this boat when it was a hurricane on Horn Island, and
Oh my
he's
God.
out there under the boat doing watercolors.
Can you imagine? That's a dedicated artist if I ever heard of one.
Yeah,
And he had journals, logs of his time.
yeah. I didn't mention the logs. There's so much about this guy. I'm just touching the tip of the iceberg.
Wow.
So this morning I drew bulrushes while the flies stung. And later I made a watercolor under my boat while the rain poured. Such is the life of an artist who prefers nature to art. He really should cultivate art more. His love of art will take care of itself as long as it has things to feed
Oh.
upon. And that really summed up his attitude.
Yeah.
It was a compulsion.
Yeah, he couldn't stop. Yeah.
No, it was, and he compared it to eating, like it was his food, painting from nature.
I think it's also when you love to make art, you're ravenous to do it. I feel like that sometimes, that's what also,
Yeah.
it's not just food, it's the hunger, it's the ravenous feeling of wanting to get back to it and do it more.
Yeah,
Mhm. Oh. Gosh, I love the way he does his watercolors. It's interesting how he does these like kind of washy things. I love that.
yeah. It's interesting when I look at his work, it's like they almost work as a whole instead of a single piece.
Huh.
It's part of a greater whole. That's why looking at the murals, is so powerful because it's all one big picture.
Yeah, yeah. And it's all a conversation, like a living conversation.
Yeah, it's really strange. Like,
You mean like if you look at parts of it or were to critique it, that it doesn't follow the rules you would normally have or something? Is that what?
yeah, kind of. It's like, you know, usually a piece has its own, like we were looking at Edward Hopper. Every piece is unique. Every piece has its own thing, composition. But with him, it's different. It's all one.
Yeah. And he's painting everything. He's trying to paint the whole of everything, sort of, or have the conversation with the whole of everything.
Yeah, like the whole universe.
Yeah. Yeah. Ooh, that's pretty.
Yeah. So this says 1960, which is only 5 years before he died.
Love that tree trunk. It's like the tree itself tells a story or something.
Yeah.
Amazing.
True success is always the last of a string of failed attempts to get it right.
That's for sure.
Waiting for that
Well,
success. I'm still in the.
Test to that.
in this class, I like to teach that it's all a success.
Yeah. That's good.
Thank you for that. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So here's the murals. We're gonna look at a bunch of these detail shots. But this is the biggest, broadest view.
And he connected the planet with each of the seasons in these.
Oh,
murals
yes.
now. So he had this whole kind of cosmic vision, which may have been expressed by some other philosopher or Gurdjieff or somebody. You know what I mean? I don't.
Yeah,
I don't think he came up with it by himself, but
no.
yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks for mentioning that. So let's look a little more here. Here's that wall we were looking at straight on. What does it look like if I go in? That's pretty good.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's so magical.
Yeah. Oh, there's a fox.
and then he had this border running around it, which was interesting.
Well, yeah, the border makes it more lively in some.
Yeah,
Huh.
pelicans, seabirds.
It's like the real objects are combined with abstract symbolic things like that door.
Yeah, and the movement,
Ah, the movement.
is so much movement in the patterning. And evidently these murals weren't that well received. And some people in the town wanted to paint over them.
Yeah, because he was kind of the mentally ill guy in town who
Yeah,
acted strange and was on his
yeah.
bike in rags,
Oh.
Here's a
Oh,
close
that's beautiful.
right side.
Oh,
Oops, sorry.
Oh, there's an owl.
Yeah,
yeah. I'm so glad you got good images of these, Michael, because I didn't have a camera when I was there.
okay. Oh, isn't that cool? Like the stars coming through the clouds.
Incredible.
Are those hills?
What?
Are these hills?
Mm.
They're really decorative.
All the different swirls and curves are just so attractive. you know, they just resonate so deeply.
Uh-huh.
So here you've got the Indian people playing flute.
That is really, that it's like a mandala or psychedelic kind of like, it reminds me almost of, Michael worked on the Oracle, in San Francisco. It's got that kind of feeling way before all that stuff.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, he was in these states, I think. And so you feel that how everything's pulsing and moving and alive and vibrating and
Wow.
Yeah.
can't be
Wow.
pinned down or made static,
Huh.
It's so interesting how he combines the rendering or illusional aspects with the patterning and
Mhm.
pulls it off.
That's nature.
He's playing the clarinet,
Flute.
flute.
And this was some story he was illustrating relative to Ocean Springs. I can't remember what it was exactly.
Oh,
Part of it, and then it kind of is all something else. But I think that part of it had something to do with oh, look at that pelican.
oh, there's a story where he was like walking home or something, and he saw these pelicans out on the bay, and
Yeah.
he just went in there and he swam out to be with them, and he stayed out there for like a whole day, and he came back. I don't know if he was sitting on an island or something or what, but that was a huge experience for him.
Yeah.
Like communing with the pelicans.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
What a beautiful painting of that pelican.
I wonder what the symbolism was here. There's the stag. It's two stags. Yeah.
The tree is so much like a candelabra.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's so sort of stylized and it's interesting. The other thing I love about his paintings is the lightness. There's so much of a light background. Everything is just so airy.
Yes. It reminds me somewhat of some of the Northern European, like Swedish
Mm-hmm.
girls I've seen.
The
It
color,
crops mine the red book too, a little bit.
Yeah.
that the way the colors are inside the animals is amazing. So beautiful.
Yeah, it's a perfect example
Isn't that
of the color
a built color?
that you might not ever see in real.
Uh-huh.
Or
And he so much just has his own language that he speaks in. Like he's got a whole language and vocabulary and alphabet or whatever, you know what I mean? It's like so, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's what these visionary artists do. They make up their own vocabulary. Like William Blake,
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Huh. Wow.
And you definitely have that feeling that all of life is kind of emerging direct from the source, sort of singing its song all at once, Like-
Yeah, beautiful. Okay, here's one of the platitudes. Bad things do happen. How I respond to them defines my character and the quality of my life. I can choose to sit in perpetual sadness, immobilized by the gravity of my loss, or I can choose to rise from the pain and treasure the most precious gift I have, life itself.
It's possible he could have been young when he wrote that.
Oh, I was thinking maybe it was when he was older, but I would like to know, actually.
Yeah, I would too. That would make a difference. What
I know,
year
because
that was from.
he said all kinds of stuff like this.
Yeah, but he says immobilized by the gravity of my loss. That's not a young person's view usually.
Yeah, right, right.
Well, boy, his family, you know, just accepted him not being able to cope
Wow.
with anything practical and isolating himself and let him do his art, you know. I mean,
Yeah,
but that was a huge sacrifice on their part.
Especially since they have
Yes.
4 kids.
yes, that's what's really, you really get that watching the documentary, like his children are on there, and it's amazing that the way they handled it, and you know, they obviously really loved him, and yet they were probably, you know, very wounded. It's really amazing.
It really is a hymn of praise.
Yes.
So magical.
Yeah, it is.
It's so interesting how Michael described his life, and then you see the art. It's just like such a surprise. It's not what I would have expected.
Well, I mean, I'm trying not to say this, but I'm so touched by the difference in parenting, how it affects people, because like if they hadn't valued him, I mean, it could have gone in a whole different direction if they hadn't honored him, you know, and not shame, you know, they didn't shame him.
Yes.
I'm just so, I just, that's so obvious that that made all the difference. Like,
Yeah, he probably would have done it anyhow, what he did, because he was driven. But yeah,
He was protected in some ways.
he
and
was protected,
when he
yes.
wasn't out on the road,
Yeah,
out on the island in the bay.
yeah, they took care of him, obviously. So we're done with the murals, so
Mm.
this is a piece from 53, which would have been after the murals, which is really one of my favorites.
the end of my book.
I can see why this is one of your favorites.
Yeah, this one really,
Work. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
wow, I haven't really looked at it. It's really amazing. And this is from Horn Island, the dunes.
New book.
What are these things?
Dolphins? No, just kidding.
Birds?
Shadows, rocks,
That looks like a bird.
or is it rocks that are covered in sand?
Yeah, maybe. But they're, I don't know.
I don't know.
Hmm.
Yeah, this is just, you know, he did hundreds and hundreds of this stuff. Smile, have you ever noticed how easily puppies make human friends? Yet all they do is wag their tails and fall over.
Mm.
Okay, so this is the workroom that they discovered after he died.
Jeez.
Oh,
It's a kind of strange rainbow.
Yeah, this,
I don't think the color is very good on this one, maybe.
no, I couldn't get good shots of this.
It's too yellow,
That's
right?
probably good right there.
This one's probably better, but
Yeah, that seems more right. Because the spectrum is there.
And this was all based on the 104th Psalm, but I didn't.
oh, yeah. Oh, I forgot about that. Well,
Wow, look at those flowers. Ooh.
yeah, they were just aghast. They opened the door and saw all the stuff.
Oh gosh.
There's some butterflies, Jennifer.
Yeah, wow.
Oh, beautiful butterflies. They're also different too. It's so cool to have a secret room. Like just painting, not expecting to show it.
Yeah.
Not
I
many,
really think that's what happens when you spend your childhood drawing, that, which I did not do, is that it becomes one of your languages, you know, it's your vocabulary, and you just do it because it's like speaking or writing. You just draw, you know,
Yeah.
how different it is when you do spend your childhood drawing. How much more at ease you are at making anything look like anything.
Yeah.
any other thoughts?
Well, it's now one. He's now one of my favorite artists.
I want both the whole show all over again and part 2.
Is there
Me too. I agree with that.
is there enough for a part 2, Michael?
There probably is, but I think it might be a little repetitive,
Yeah.
since
You
we've
could-
seen the murals and
You could send out the link to the video, because I think it is the same one I have. And if you have a link to it, that
oh
would
yeah, I can do that.
satisfy a lot, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is there a good book, Sonny or Michael?
I have a book about his murals, and the color pictures are terrible. I think it was before they were restored, because they were restored,
Oh,
and it's just horrible photography. You know, it was just like I went in there and took a picture on my phone, you know, like really bad pictures. It's interesting in other ways. And the library, the public library, has, I think it has some of the journals of Horn Island, and his wife wrote something.
His wife wrote a memoir
And
about their
library-
life together, which is supposed to be really good.
It is good. Yeah, it's the public Sonoma, you know, our local library has it.
Did
I
you read
think-
it?
Well, I could have requested it interlibrary loan. I'm not sure now, but it's obtainable, you know.
Yeah, okay, but you didn't read it, did you?
I did read it.
Oh,
Yeah.
you did?
Yeah, I mean, a few years ago, or, you know, yeah.
Yeah,
Went down the rabbit hole.
you did. Well, we might,
I've done that with a lot of the artists that we've studied, you know,
Yeah.
just getting books from the library and just saturating myself.
Yeah.
it's fascinating that, during that time period that he was alive, think of all the other artists that we've looked at, Edward Hopper was one of them. And, so many people working in so many different ways. And he was like hiding out down there, and he didn't really give a damn about anything but just the art and communing with nature.
How did he die? He's pretty young.
65,
Yeah.
Answer.
Lung cancer, they
lung
said.
cancer, yeah.
did he?
Any other thoughts?
Yeah, there's some like innocence about his work and purity, and he had his way of his motifs, but it's structured, but it's not structured at the same time. It's it feels so alive. Like if it was, you couldn't get that feeling if it was so highly structured. But it's paradoxical though, right? Because it is and it isn't, because you get the repetition of these shapes, and that's a very defined structure, but it doesn't feel that way at all. It doesn't feel limiting, not in any sense. I think he's amazing.
Yeah, like you would think that an artist who does kind of these very stylized things with a lot of pattern wouldn't be able to give you this emotional pitch to it,
Mhm.
but he does that.
But to me, in a certain way, that's the goal, is with training, which we all have, even if it's just from this class, with all the training, is to be able to combine, that with the spontaneous
Mhm.
flow of the imagination. I mean, that's like my goal in a way. It's like one by itself isn't that good. It's either boring or doesn't have enough structure.
Mhm.